Good evening, boys and girls and girls and boys. It is the seventh day of the month. It is 8:47, and I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the GM Grumpy, with another OG GM adventure. And today we are continuing our Mega Dungeon March exploration. We've decided we're going to take the classic pyramid in the desert dungeon, an iconic image, and sort of just twist it. Now, what is it we can expect from a normal pyramid? Egyptian themed monsters, sphinxes, mummies, snake people, dog headed people, stuff like that. Cult of Set. We can expect weird puzzles and weird traps and weird Indiana Jones type thingies where you like have to turn the thing and the water rises and then the water reaches the thing and then the sunlight and it's Indiana Jones, Tomb Raiders, outrageous things where, in fact, most of the tombs and pyramids, if they did have traps, were very simple. Another thing we could expect is disease, like rotting mummy disease and King Tut's disease and ferret, stuff like that. Weird, outlandish ancient treasure like, a giant gold encrusted sarcophagus with pieces of rubies and giant gems the size of scarab beetles, which is worth hundreds of thousands of gold pieces. But how are you going to get it out? Because it weighs like a ton, and a lot of wasted space. Because let's face it, pyramids have a lot of wasted space. It's a lot of room for like three things: entrance, outer tomb, inner tomb. Now, the whole reason why pyramids were built was, in worship of these god kings to attract the attention so that the journey to the afterlife could be more foreseeable by the spirits inside the pyramid so they wouldn't get lost and they could come back. And they were built, they had a lot of, false tunnels and traps to prevent grave robbery. Of course, if you think about it, the best way to prevent grave robbery is to not advertise that you just built a giant grave for your king that you buried with a bunch of treasure. Because I don't know, a giant pyramid sticking out in the desert kind of says, I should pay attention to that. I wonder what's inside. They went to all this trouble. So another thing we can expect from pyramids is either they're very, very, very old or they're like crashed spaceships and, aliens were involved. There's like Stargate stuff and stuff like that. So there might be like weird future tech. So the iconic image of the pyramid in the dungeon in the desert has been done. So how can we twist it? Now I thought we would take the two classic, ancient tomb and crashed spaceship and sort of, excuse me, take it in a new way. And what if our pyramid was from the future, like far, far, far from the future? And instead of being a crashed spaceship, it just somehow went back in time to the point in time where the adventurers find it. So it is from the future of whatever world you're running to, it's reached the point of whether it's spelljammer technology or, space technology or whatever. And then something happens and sends this pyramid back in time, and so the people or whoever are in this pyramid are affected by this time trip and they become the monsters that are inhabiting it. So that's kind of the theme. And that would explain our memory sand, our doppelganger sand outside the dungeon as a nanite colony that escaped when the time ship crashed in our current time from the future. So what we want to play with now is entrances and the rule of 5 and the rule of 3. So we want to have 3 entrances, 3 ways for the player, 3 main ways for the players to get in and 3 ways for the players to get out. Now the first way in, we've already discussed. We've got our little cave here where our sand guys are hanging out. And, they're conducting their little weird rituals, and the sand guy, and they're trying to make more sand people. And see, that's our first entrance. So our second entrance is also going to be on the ground level on the opposite side, or, one of the 3 sides. And it's going to be the normal, typical tomb entrance. So, it's going to be hidden, but not that hidden. And, it's going to be okay, and then here's the things, and then here's the hallways, and then, then the thing, and whatever, the tomb, and then the false tomb, and the real tomb, and the typical things you would expect to find in a pyramid, except, of course, this isn't a pyramid, it's a building from the future that somehow got trapped in current adventure time. So this classic pyramid entrance is going to have some futuristic, flavor to it, like maybe automatic opening doors and code keys, and like the thing in Gattaca where you got to stick your finger in and it takes a thing of your blood to make sure you're supposed to be there. And of course, there's going to be guardians. Now, in a typical tomb, normally the guardians might be just the fact of time, and the false tomb, and the trap, and then the real tomb hidden behind a secret door. In a typical fantasy dungeon, the tomb guards are going to be like golems or sphinxes or giant snake people or a giant snake and something else that fits that Egyptian D&D theme. Now, we already know that there is future tech, and the future tech has created our little nanites. So what if we play on the theme of Egyptian monsters and put a giant snake guarding the entrance? But because this is a future time ship that has come back to present adventure time, maybe this is a robot snake, or maybe this is a normal snake that has been experimented on much the same way the nanites were experimented on to create the doppelganger sand. So either way, we're going to have this classic giant snake encounter on entrance number 2, this classic D&D Egyptian themed snake, but with our twist that this is a time machine, or just, and then entrance number 3, we're going to have at the top, and that's going to be the one that's going to be hardest to get to, because first they got to figure out how to get to the top, which of course if they can fly, but whatever, maybe there's reason why they can't fly up there and they have to go up there the hard way, like maybe there's constant lightning around it once you get closer, which makes flying impossible because of the way this time ship is disrupting the atmosphere because of the weird futuristic material it's made out of, is causing a constant electromagnetic disturbance above the top. So if they try and fly up there, zap. So they have to climb it the old-fashioned way. We draw our little guy climbing, and then because that's going to be the hardest one, so there's going to be things, encounters as they climb up. Small little, maybe, giant scarabs, maybe, there could be a whole environment just going from the bottom to the top, a whole ecology of plants that have grown along the side and mutated because of the energies from here, the temporal distortion. There could maybe be, giant insects, and we'll go with the Egyptian theme, and we'll have the giant insects be scarabs. Who knows? Maybe there's even a teeny little group that's already made it up there, some bandits who've come halfway and they're camped down on one of the ledges, Indiana Jones Himalayas style, and they're picking away to get in, and this could be a small sub encounter if they go up that one side. But anyways, it should get hard to get to the top, because this just interests, maybe once they get to it, it's gonna give them access to cooler stuff right away, as opposed to going through the easy entrance, which is going to be harder to get to the cooler stuff, to get to that cushy middle of the dungeon where all the good stuff is. And the next thing we want to play with the rule of 3 with 3 entrances, is the rule of 5. That every dungeon every encounter, every scenario is broken up into 5 things, and how we can constantly repeat the rule of 5 in the mega dungeon in between the empty space. Because remember, there's going to be empty space, and there's going to be factions, and there's going to be that fluidity, that things are changing. And part of that fluidity is this temporal flux, and the fact that this thing is come from the future and is in our D&D present. But because it's from the future, it's got future stuff in it. It's got D&D present stuff in it. And there's, of course, the temporal flux that is just making this weird constant flow of change that one time the, giant snake, but the next time you go in, it just might be Betty Sue the secretary going, "Oh, do you have an appointment with Mr. Wilson?" And you're trying to explain in your plate mail with your sword and your shield, and she's like, "Oh, is there a LARP going on? Are you guys in the Ren Fair?" And you're like, "No, we need to kill the Lich," and so whatever. So there's your flow. So the rule of 5 is, combat, role-playing encounter, skill test encounter, second combat, usually with the big boss, and then reward. Or third combat, and then reward. But, that. And then there's you can change that. It could be role-playing, then skill test, then combat, reward, or whatever, some variation. So in designing the interior and the factions, we want to break it up into the rule of 5. And of course, the best way to do that is to give our sections, our factions, themes, while maintaining this main theme of A, pyramid, so Egyptian themed stuff, but B, also it's from a future, so we have science fiction, Stargate-y kind of stuff. So our rule of 5 is going to be built around that. And it's going to be built around that there's, main areas inside our mega dungeon, which each have a theme. And we're going to have, to keep with the rule of 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to have 5 main areas. Area number 1, area number 2, area number 3, area number 4, area number 5. Each of these 5 areas will be controlled by a faction, or an idea, or a theme. So our overall theme is Egypt, pyramid, time, travel, time, distortion. And our themes of the subrooms are based upon what the hell was going on in this place before it got sent back to D&D present from D&D future. What were these crazy pyramid technologies people doing in this mega lab structure that caused them to create giant mutant snakes and nanite sand and whatever else, the weird quasi-Egyptian, well, we're going to build it to reflect the might of the pyramids. Very Ozymandias, and then either by mistake or on purpose, they send themselves back in time and create this place, this god home, this floating dungeon, this lost Dutchman of dungeons that has arrived in your D&D present, and your adventurers are exploring it. So who are these idiots? And we'll explore that in the next one when we discuss our themes and we discuss pyramid tech or pyramid incorporated, or if we can get Resident Evil and make them like pyramid pharmaceuticals, pyramid farm, and so that's where we're going. So we have gotten to part 2. So we know 3 entrances, rule of 5. Dungeon is split up into 5 main sections. Each section is controlled by a theme or a faction, and they all feed into this general overall theme of this sort of Egyptian, quasi-classic Egyptian type, tropes along with futuristic tropes. And the builders of Pyramid Farm. So Pyramid Pharmaceuticals from the future, something happens, sends them back in the time, and weird Egyptian lich, giant mummy, snake people shenanigans. We'll discuss that in the next episode. I hope you enjoy these episodes. If you do, please click the link down below or support me, and I'll talk to you later, losers.